Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. After 4 months of living in what she described as a house of hell in Winnipeg's North End, Samantha Zabrowski has finally found a home. But the First Nations mother of 6 says they're not the only family dealing with precarious housing in Manitoba, and she's speaking out in hopes of sparking change. APTN Sierra Bettens brings you her story.
After working tirelessly to get her life and her children back, all Samantha Zabrowski wanted was a home.
We're almost 18 months into our sobriety. We had to start all over again, from being reunificated with our kids at a transitioning center, starting all over from having nothing to building something to thinking we're having a home.
But for 4 months, she lived in what she describes as a house of hell. In early 2025, Zabrowski found a rental on Alfred Avenue in Winnipeg's North End through an online listing. But when she moved in on March 11th, she alleges it was nothing like the photos.
Leaving a transitioning center, fleeing for our lives, thinking we have a home to go to walk into the house of hell. No fridge, no heat, no water, no stove, nothing for me and my kids, no furnace. So we literally couldn't stay there. We had to leave.
Zabrowski and her family temporarily stayed at a hotel. She stored her items at the house on Alfred Avenue and did her best to secure what she alleges was an unsecure house. When they returned to retrieve their belongings on March 17th, she says they discovered the house was broken into.
Everything, the traditional dresses, my drums, my rattles, my kids' stuff, our clothing, our bikes, our electric bikes, our games, our couches, our furniture, right to the deep freezer and the food, right from everything that we had in the house, gone.
On March 17th, Zabrowski moved into another Ember Realty property on Aberdeen Avenue. But she says it wasn't much better than the previous rental, alleging,
"There's black mold, pigeon infestation. You can't go upstairs. You use the upstairs bathroom, it leaks through the ceilings. We're no longer able to bath the kids into the bathroom, into the area, the baby, due to the fact of the black mold smelling around the bathrooms."
Zabrowski received a notice of termination from Ember for non-payment of rent in April, but continued to live at the property on Aberdeen while on several housing waitlists. Shauna McKinnon, a professor of urban and inner city studies at the University of Winnipeg, says the lack of social and affordable housing in Manitoba leaves many low-income families with few options.
That is the kind of housing that we know is most accessible to folks who are living in low incomes, and especially when you're talking about families, with a bunch of kids. I mean, it's really virtually impossible to get housing that's affordable in the private market for those families.
She says Manitoba's Your Way Home strategy has focused on housing people living in encampments, but leaves out others experiencing housing insecurity.
Housing is really the foundation, right, in terms of health, education, employment, all of those things, family unification of folks who are involved in child welfare, and so it really should be made the top priority to expand the supply.
After a hearing on July 8th, which the landlord did not show, the Residential Tenancies Branch ordered Ember Realty to pay Zabrowski $194.20 for the property on Aberdeen and $5,479.60 for the property on Alfred Avenue by August 5th.
We want our money back for the rent, the damage, the lost properties, the furnace bills that I've been paying for.
APTN reached out to Ember Realty for comment via telephone and email on multiple occasions, but they never responded. We also visited their offices on Selkirk Avenue, which appeared to be closed. A sign on the door directed tenants to pay their rent to the pawn shop down the street. I'm a reporter with APTN. I'm looking for Ember Realty.
Oh, they're next door.
The next door? Okay, are their offices closed
maybe
today?
Just a second. Car's still there.
Okay. Okay, so would she be at the building?
It's not the first door. I think it's the second door.
Oh, okay, the second door. Okay, great, thank you. Zabrowski recently moved out of the property on Aberdeen Avenue and into a new rental not managed by Ember Realty. But she's sharing her story knowing other Manitoba families are experiencing similar struggles. While APTN cannot independently verify them, online reviews of Ember Realty allege numerous issues, including black mold, pest issues, and a lack of communication from landlords. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thanks, Sierra. The mother of a 14-year-old youth missing in Edmonton for 2 months is still looking for her son and hoping he comes home safe. APTN's Chris Stewart spoke to Alana Bird, who is still on the streets looking for her missing son, Samuel.
On June 1st, Alana Bird last saw her son, 14-year-old Samuel Bird. He was staying with friends and didn't come home that night. His mother said it wasn't unusual lately for him not to come home for a single night, and says Samuel began hanging out with the wrong crowd.
I noticed slow changes. He started staying out longer, then he wouldn't come home for a night, and then, but then substances came, like alcohol, and we tried to do tough love too, that's you're just gonna take you down the wrong road or something bad's gonna happen, and he was just a teenager. I don't think he knew anything bad would ever happen to him.
For 2 months, Alana has been searching Edmonton, looking for her son. Family, friends, and supporters helped in the searches. This past Sunday, a search and vigil was held for Samuel.
It's just been a lot of searching, even those first couple of days, I was going to West Ed, sitting there, asking just random kids that I thought was his age, just to be like, do you guys know this boy? Have you seen Samuel? And a lot of them were like, oh, I just seen him. And so I was having some hope and everything.
But no solid leads happened. The Edmonton Police Service told APTN News the investigation is ongoing with no new updates. Meanwhile, Alana fears the worst for her boy, but she has not given up hope.
I'll continue looking every day until I search this whole area, and then if not, we'll move out of town, and if not, we'll keep searching. I'll do whatever I have to find him. I'll never give up, because that's my baby.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Cabin Radio, an independent online radio station and news outlet based in Yellowknife, has been granted their FM license after nearly a decade in operation. Video journalist Bruce De La Cruz tells us how this is not only a win for Cabin Radio, but also for the Indigenous communities they cater to.
Was on in Yellowknife last weekend. Our reporter
Ollie Williams is recording some lines for the morning news show at Cabin Radio, part of his regular routine as editor and co-founder. But this week has been anything but ordinary for the Cabin team. As of July 30th, Cabin Radio is now a fully fledged FM radio station.
Cabin Radio has an FM license, which is something that we weren't able to say for the past 9 or so years of our history. We spent 6 years trying to get to this point, and finally this week the CRTC, the federal regulator, said yes to broadcasting on FM in Yellowknife.
Cabin Radio has been an independent online station and news outlet for the last decade, serving Yellowknife and some 30 northern communities. They have built a large Indigenous audience along the way. Ollie wants Cabin Radio to be a first step for aspiring journalists, local news produced for locals by locals.
It's already quite difficult to get journalists and broadcasters who are prepared to come to the North and really understand the North. Wouldn't it be so much easier and a bunch more appropriate if the reporters and the broadcasters just came from northern communities and already had that understanding baked in? Those are the experiences we ought to be able to draw from.
Jasmine Nasogalawak is a Nuvialuit and Dene. She started working as a broadcast assistant in February. She and her family relied on Cabin Radio to keep them informed during the 2023 Yellowknife wildfire crisis.
In my opinion, Cabin Radio, even before I started here, was a huge resource for a lot of people, especially for me during evacuation.
As an aspiring journalist, she's grateful for the spaces that Cabin Radio creates for Indigenous people looking to join the broadcast industry.
I was born and raised here. There was always this gap between me and people where just because I didn't look a certain way or I didn't have a certain skin color, I was kind of treated like an outcast. But ever since coming here to Cabin Radio, my mind completely switched on that. Everyone here is very accepting. They don't think about the color of your skin or who you are. They just want you to do a good job.
Reflecting on the new license, Ollie says he's truly grateful for the support from Cabin Radio's loyal listeners over the years.
I just want to say a huge thank you to the community that supported us. We would not be in this position now if it hadn't been for years of people writing letters of support, encouraging us the whole time, telling us how much they wanted this. And hopefully this week feels like a victory for them as much as it does for us.
Although Cabin Radio has received their FM license, they are waiting for new gear to be able to start broadcasting on their frequency at 93.9.
Really?
Bruce De La Cruz, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Congrats to the Cabin Radio team, just met Ollie last week. Time for a quick break. Our Truth and Politics panel will be here. Stick around. Welcome back. A new report released this week is highlighting the intersection between the disappearance of Indigenous women and human trafficking in Canada. According to the report by Thomson Reuters, despite being only 5% of the population, Indigenous women and girls account for over 50% of trafficking victims. For more, we're joined by our Truth and Politics panel. Negon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press, and Jennifer Lewitz is the CEO of Pasqua Strategies. Jennifer Negon, great to see you. Jennifer, as I said, some alarming stuff here. The Prairie provinces being identified as having the highest concentration of cases of MMIWG, which is well documented. But the analysis uncovered trends of disappearances and sex ads featuring Indigenous women and girls across Canada. What stood out for you?
There were quite a few things in that report that stood out for me. I think it's important to look, where the population of Indigenous people is the most dense is where we're seeing these issues on the rise. But I think, it's easy to exploit Indigenous people that are living in poverty. And so I think that's an important connection to make is, where these issues seem to be on the rise or more dense, or some of our most Indigenous populated areas, especially when it comes to First Nation communities that are living in poverty. Prince Albert was listed on that report, and it does not shock me at all. A lot of our communities around Prince Albert are still dealing with systemic issues, and especially in the north, where a lot of people actually come from, in the Prince Albert area.
Niigaan, you wrote about this in your recent newsletter. What are some of the things that stuck out for you from the report?
Well, I've known for quite a long time about some of the trafficking that's been happening in certain ports, like what it calls ships or the global absconding, kidnapping, slavery of women and girls in Thunder Bay, for example. But what I perhaps didn't know with this larger trend of this report is that this isn't just something that is sort of nefarious forces outside of Canada, but these are forces very much working in Canada, in urban areas, and as a result, they're trafficking individuals within neighborhoods that all of us would know, all of us would be traveling in. And as I wrote in my newsletter, this is, sex trafficking doesn't begin in some far off place when someone's kidnapped. It takes place in your neighborhood, and you can see it in the pages of your newspaper. You can see it online in online ads, and there's a direct connection that's made with this report that suggests that this is a very growing issue. And as marginalization and poverty rises, so does sex trafficking. And I think people should connect those dots, and I'm glad this report did that.
Jen, the report quotes a previous study on the impact industries like oil and gas and mining have on the increased trafficking of girls. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs in a release pointed to this and the green lighting of major projects that's likely to soon happen. Should those come with enforceable safety guarantees on projects near First Nations?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer that especially the companies coming in to execute these projects are working with neighboring communities, not just in the broader context or conversation around inclusion and partnerships, so that our people are actually physically working on these projects. But it's not difficult to see the parallel that would happen from the increase of projects and the increase on, the negative side effects that has on our communities nearby, especially as it comes to trafficking and the impacts on Indigenous women and girls. Because with any project, it's going to bring a transient workforce. It's going to bring tons of people that may not be from around that area, but it's also going to bring in an influx of cash. Some of these people are, in isolation as they're working on these jobs, especially if camps are developed. All of those things play into the risk of, the risk that's associated with the women and girls that might be in vulnerable positions as it is. So I think it's not far out there to ask that there be some type of, safety parameters or agreements in place. But I think the more Indigenous people you bring to the table in these projects, if you are going to attempt these projects, it would lessen those risks because more of our people would have an understanding of who they're actually working with and some of the risks that come with it.
Niigaan, there were some areas of action mentioned, including a national database for Indigenous disappearances, integrating sex ad data with MMIW cases, prioritizing investigative resources in Winnipeg and Edmonton in particular, and better cross-border collaboration with Canada and the US. Any of those really stick out for you?
Well, I think probably what sticks out most for me is that we've heard these before, and these are very deeply embedded within the Murdered Missing Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry Final Report, the 231 calls for justice, and they're very much connected with that. Dealing with this issue would directly tie with engaging and empowering these very important calls for justice. But unfortunately, if there's anything that's been seen is that those 231 calls have been been very slow for pickup. There's been a very small amount of political will, only in certain corners, and only when it becomes overlap of other existing initiatives in First Nations policing, for example. And so should there be a national database? Absolutely. Should there be more connection between those forces, those units that are assigned for dealing with trafficking, and then connecting that with the critical issue of murder missing Indigenous women and girls? That should happen yesterday. That's not even, why are we debating this subject on, because here's the reason, and the ultimate reasoning why, and for anyone who's doubting on why this is an important issue, we can either pay for this issue now, which is a lot more cost effective, efficient, saves lives, or we can pay for it later. And we'll pay for it 10 times worse in various different institutions and systems within our society. Never mind all of the trauma and pain and suffering that a disproportionate group of people are facing, particularly those families that are impacted by their loved ones who have been taken away from them.
Indeed. We're going to leave it there and talk about a new poll on reconciliation over on the podcast. Thanks to you both.
You gotcha.
Thanks.
Time for one last quick break, but stick around. We've got a real success story coming up. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And our thanks to Terry Spicer for sharing this beautiful sunset that brought the day to a peaceful, relaxing end, and sure does look peaceful. Thanks again, Terry. You can send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, sun's out and 22 in Fredericton, cloudy and 19 for Halifax. 18 in Kuujjuaq, cloudy and 12 in Nain. Sunny and 24 in Montreal, sunny and 20 in Val-d'Or. 22 under sunny skies in Sault Ste. Marie, sun's out and 23 in Ottawa. 29 under sunny skies in Thunder Bay, sunny and 27 in Sioux Lookout. 30 with showers in God's Lake, 32 and sunny in Thompson. A sunny day in Winnipeg and Dauphin with a high of 29. 31 under the sun in Regina and Saskatoon. 32 and sunny in Meadow Lake, sun's out, and 25 in La Ronge. Sunny across most of northern Alberta, 31 in High Level, 33 in Peace River. 32 and sunny in Edmonton and Lethbridge. Sunny and 20 in Vancouver, 31 under the sun in Kamloops. Showers and 29 in Prince George, 22 and sunny for Smithers. Sunny and 21 in Old Crow, sun's out, and 20 for Whitehorse. 26 with showers in Yellowknife, 17 in Norman Wells. 6 under sunny skies in Sax Harbor, 19 in Inuvik. Cloudy and 17 for Chesterfield, 13 and sunny in Whale Cove. 5 in Resolute, 9 in Joe Haven. An entrepreneur from British Columbia is making her dreams come true, one charcuterie board at a time. APTN's Ryan Cunningham has this story.
To make a charcuterie rose, you get some salami. I've already pre-sliced this, so you just lay it flat here and keep building it around. Wiggle it around just to give it a little loose because you don't want it too tight. And then it looks like that.
Victoria Redhead is busy in her commercial kitchen preparing for another one of her delicious charcuterie boards. It's been just over 2 years since Redhead made her first charcuterie board for a family event.
We had a gathering and I made a board and I posted it on Facebook, and then I probably had like 20 messages from people asking me where I ordered it from. And it's like, I ordered it? Or I made it, and nobody believed me. And I was like, yeah. And then I made another one, and then people were influencing me to start doing it as a business.
She launched her own company called Owl Aboard Charcuterie 2 years ago. The owl is her way of paying homage to her late grandmother, and her edible art has transcended into these beautiful displays of exotic fruits, vegetable platters, the finest cheeses, meats, handcrafted chocolates, all served on biodegradable boards.
I do everything myself, from the slicing of the meat to doing deliveries to doing the orders, emails, everything myself. But I've done a lot of stuff for like Snotty Nose Res Kids, the Longhouse at UBC, Vancouver Fashion Week, Indigenous Fashion Week. So I've done quite a bit.
And over the years, she has taught herself new tricks, such as incorporating edible flowers, edible gold dust, and dehydrating her own fruit, as well as learning new techniques for her presentations from social media.
Eventually, I'd like to get a big storefront. That's my ultimate goal. Probably a couple years away right now, but that would be my goal. Maybe even having a couple of them. We'll see.
And so far, business is good, and her popularity is rising.
Just being recognized. I've met some lady at Unlock. All the Indigenous people go to Unlock, and a lady who stopped me and was like, "Oh, I had your board." I'm like, "Oh," like I just get recognized more now, and it's a little, it's humbling, but it's also like, okay, I'm getting there.
Ryan Cunningham, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Very nice. Looks beautifully delicious. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday, July 31st. Holy, already the end of July. I will be back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time with your first look at the day's news. And for news anytime, of course, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned. An encore presentation of Face to Face is up next. Have a great night.